sick, so I might cough or breathe kind of funny. Anyways, good morning, class. Good morning, everybody. Today I want to outline where tea originated from, the ways it can be used for different occasions, and the way it was processed. This past week, I came down with an awful cold, which had me coughing. It was difficult for me to breathe, and I couldn't sleep at night. Before I visited the doctors, I actually took some tea. The tea I drank was meant to soothe and relax the sore throat, and after a cup, I instantly felt so much better. I wasn't coughing up my lungs anymore, and I just felt so much better. Even though teas aren't a curable substance for most illnesses, it may still help you recover quicker by calming your nerves. Allow me to share with you the importance of tea. Maybe you're thinking, tea? Why the heck would I want to listen to somebody talk about tea? Well, I can tell you, I'm more of a coffee girl myself, but I do resort to tea when I'm feeling under the weather, I can't sleep at night, or maybe I just want that extra caffeine in the morning without the jitters. I advise you all to pay attention to what I have to say because this may help you in the future. What I will enlighten everybody about today is where tea originated from, the different kinds, and the process, as I've said in the beginning. First of all, allow me to explain you a brief history lesson on where tea came from. The history of tea takes us all the way back to 2737 BC. Legend has it that the first cup of tea was actually discovered when dry leaves fell into a boiling cup of water that was served to a Chinese emperor, Sang-un. Although it was difficult to tell if this legend is actually true or not, it was definitely established in China during the Tang Dynasty in 618 all the way through 906 AD. In the early 16th century, tea traveled all the way over to Europe, which was the first shipment was imported from China to Holland. Tea became high in price as it was a fashionable drink among the Dutch. Due to the high prices of tea, it was only affordable to the wealthy. As tea spread through trade, Britain finally got a hold of it and was actually the nation's biggest tea drinkers. A Portuguese princess that married Charles II was so in love with the tea that she was considered a tea addict. She established that it was a very fashionable beverage among the wealthy class, and in 1664 the first order was placed, which consisted of 100 pounds of China tea from Java. Java was some islands that had a huge trading post in that time era. According to the UK Tea Infusions and Associations, the first tax on tea in the leaf was introduced in 1689. The tax on tea was so high that it was 25 pence coins per pound. That's the British coinage. It was so high that it almost stopped the sales on tea. Due to such a high taxation, tea was smuggled in 7 million pounds per year. To make tea look like it had not been used already, smugglers would alter the coloration of it by adding in sheep dung or poisonous copper carbonate. Eventually, the government had had enough and put an end to the high taxation. This eventually stopped the smuggling basically overnight, and everyone was able to afford it in all classes. Tea also reached North America in 1650 when Peter Stuyvesant became more popular and introduced it in a World's Fair in 1904. During the World's Fair, the first invention of iced tea was made, and tea bags were commercially sold. There are many different kinds of options of tea. It's endless. However, ones I will discuss with you are most important. Oh, sorry. I'm not going to read my slides. That's my map. So I'm going to go over this real quick with you guys. Most important due to their natural abilities to heal. So I had you guys pass out a sheet. It's basically this because I knew you guys wouldn't be able to see it very well. So if you just want to look over that sheet while I talk, that'd be great. Green tea is high in antioxidants, which reduces cholesterol and contains a calming effect. Then there's black tea, which is one of my favorites, which lowers cholesterol. And lemon balm tea is actually really good for you if you have the cold. Now that we've gone over a little bit of the historical background, the properties, and I will briefly explain to you the process of tea. So there's actually two ways that you can process tea. One of these ways is the orthodox method. The other way is the CTC method. The orthodox method consists of 4 stages, which is withering, rolling, oxidation, and drying. The CTC method, however, is just cut, tear, and curl, which was used mainly in the Second World War so that they could pack tea into chests and bags easier. With all this information I have given you guys today, I will finally bring it to an end. I have told you the origin of tea, shared with you the properties which it has, and how it's made. Hopefully, I've managed to keep your attention throughout this presentation on a topic that you may think is bland, but I believe it's a pretty important topic, and it's meaningful to us as people and as to the history of the United States.
So Elizabeth, what did you think? She's not here? All right, well then I guess I'll just tell you what I thought. You have a good section that would be a great attention device that you don't use as your attention device. It's actually, you treat it as a transition between identifying what your topic is and then presenting the material a second time. So that whole section where you're talking about being sick last week and drinking the tea, that should be your attention device. That should be the very first thing that you say. Don't tell us, in essence, although you didn't use the phrase, my topic is, and that kind of thing, that's what you start off with. It's just, hi, my topic is, and then you also kind of give a preview, and then you tell that story, which would have been a great attention device, and then you come back and basically repeat the same stuff that you already gave us at the beginning. So it feels like it was planned but not practiced. And I think if you went back at it and looked at it, you'd see how much better that would work. You've got a very clear statement of what your goal is. But like I said, it felt like I was on repeat since that was the first thing that you gave us at the beginning of the speech. The subject is pretty clearly explained. There's a very easy kind of topical method of organization that's also combined a little bit with a chronological method of organization. So that's pretty good. At first, especially when you were talking about the history of teas, their origins, there weren't any sources being cited, but as you got further into the historical development of the trade, there are a few more references to some of the research that you did. It did feel a little bit like a couple of times random pieces of information were being dropped in, and I think that there's probably a reason for them, but it's not always clear why. For example, you talked about this one princess who appeared to be addicted to tea, and I'm going, so why are we hearing about her? And I assume that it's got to do with popularizing the tea, but I didn't think that it was explained as well as it needed to be. Let's see, the issue about the tax history and the smuggling stuff, that was interesting and important. I do think that you could probably do a whole speech on those kinds of issues from a historical perspective and make it pretty interesting. I think there's some stuff that you have in there that was fine, and you gave a couple of citations there. That's pretty good. I got a very clear transition when you were going to the next point, and I thought that that was helpful. You're pretty consistent about that. I think you noticed yourself that the visual materials mostly got shunted aside since you hadn't really, I mean, it was like you had a title slide up, which I told people you don't need the title slide, and then it was 4 slides that just, oh, I forgot to show those, and we went zip right through them to the one thing that you did show us, which was also duplicated on a handout, so it felt a little bit redundant. And by the way, I never got a handout, so that's a little bit problematic. And I discourage people from using handouts, so that's a 3rd strike on that one. That's a little bit problematic. I think maybe some of those other visuals that you skipped over would have been really helpful in maybe giving your speech a little bit more substance and generating some interest there. I think you're doing quite a bit of reading during the presentation, and although the reading is solid, you want to avoid having to do that. You want to talk to us a little bit more. Let's see. Oh, and there was one spot where it seemed like we jumped 300 years, 3 centuries. We went from something that was happening in the 1600s to the World's Fair in 1904, and I was a little confused about that, so I'm not sure if you missed a card in there or there was a transition section that was missing, but there was something definitely a little bit odd about that. I thought you had a good summary at the end of the speech too. All right, thank you.